Planned Parenthood understands that abortion stigma can make you feel isolated and scared. Listening to one another is how we build strong and supportive communities. That's why Planned Parenthood is sharing stories of resilience and hope from real people who've had abortions. Let's help create a world where everyone can get the care they need. Learn more at plannedparenthood.com/endstigma.
I'm Israel Gutierrez. I'm hosting a new podcast called 4 Years of Heat. It takes you to Miami from 2010 to 2014, when LeBron James, Chris Bosh, and Dwayne Wade set the NBA ablaze.
You know, have an opportunity to team up with the best trio to ever play the game of basketball.
We'll take you inside those 4 monumental years with behind-the-scenes access and insight about one of the greatest teams ever assembled. 4 Years of Heat on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello. From Wonder Media Network, I'm Jenny Kaplan, and this is Womanica. We're celebrating Pride Month with icons, supreme queens of queer culture. Some are household names, others are a little more behind the scenes. All have defied social norms and influenced generations of people to be unapologetically themselves. Today we're talking about a woman who waged war against the federal government for the recognition of same-sex marriage. Let's talk about Edie Windsor. Edith, better known as Edie, was born on June 20th, 1929 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Her parents were Jewish immigrants from Russia. The family struggled during the Great Depression. At one point during Edie's childhood, they lost their home and their business. In high school, Edie excelled academically and socially. She caught the attention of many of the boys and even had a few boyfriends. But she remembers always being attracted to girls. The same thing happened in college. While studying at Temple University, Edie got engaged to her brother's friend Saul. But she ended it when she fell in love with a female classmate. But despite her deep feelings, Edie was not ready to come out as a lesbian, so in the end, she agreed to marry Saul. The two tied the knot after she graduated in 1950. Ultimately, Edie couldn't live a lie. She told Saul he deserved better, and the two divorced within a year. Edie moved to New York for a fresh start. She worked secretarial jobs while getting her master's in applied mathematics from New York University. In 1958, IBM hired Edie as an early computer programmer. This time, Edie excelled professionally, but struggled socially. In those days, Edie felt it was impossible to live openly as a gay woman. As she worked her way up to a senior systems programmer, she hid her sexuality from her coworkers. But privately, Edie was ready for love. She eventually asked a friend to take her to lesbian bars. This led her to Portofino, a restaurant known for providing a safe space for lesbians on Friday nights. There, in 1963, Edie met Dr. Thea Speyer. Thea was a successful clinical psychologist. The two women danced the night away. It was like there was a magnetic force pulling them together. But they were both in relationships with other people. Over the subsequent 2 years, they kept running into each other at parties. Finally, in 1965, Edie and Thea officially started dating after a run-in in the Hamptons. 2 years after that, Thea proposed. She gave Edie a diamond brooch instead of a ring to avoid questions that neither was prepared to answer. In 1969, Edie and Thea decided to stop hiding. Upon their return from a summer trip to Italy, Edie and Thea heard about the Stonewall Inn raid that had happened the night before. The courage of their peers inspired them. Edie later said, "From that day on, I had this incredible gratitude. They changed my life. They changed my life forever." Edie and Thea agreed they would start living openly as lesbian women, and they did. They attended pride parades, joined gay and lesbian organizations, and expanded their LGBTQ social network. And for decades, they remained dedicated to each other, engaged but not married. But in 1977, everything changed. Thea was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. Edie turned her attention to taking care of her. Because same-sex marriage wasn't legal, Edie and Thea couldn't receive the same benefits that heterosexual married couples could. In 1993, they signed up for the Domestic Partnership Registry, which granted benefits like housing and health insurance. They were the 80th couple in the country to enroll. In 2007, the doctors told Thea she had only a year left to live. Edie and Thea didn't have time to wait for New York to legalize same-sex marriage. After a 40-year engagement, they decided it was time to tie the knot any way they could. On May 22, 2007, Edie and Thea were married in Toronto by Canada's first openly gay judge. Edie was ecstatic. She didn't take marriage lightly. She said, "Married is a magic word, and it is magic throughout the world. It has to do with our dignity as human beings, to be who we are openly." The next year, in 2008, New York recognized the union as a valid marriage. Edie and Thea enjoyed 21 months as newlyweds before Thea succumbed to her illness. Edie inherited Thea's estate like any widow would, but she was shocked to learn that she didn't qualify for the tax exemption that was given to all heterosexual couples. She'd have to pay over $300,000 to the IRS. A decade earlier, in 1996, the U.S. had passed the Defense of Marriage Act, or DOMA. To be federally recognized, a marriage had to be the legal union between a man and a woman. So even though Thea and Edie had been together for 40 years, were legally married in Canada, and had a union recognized by their home state, to the U.S. government they were legally strangers. Edie had reached her boiling point. On November 9, 2010, she sued the federal government for refusing to recognize her marriage. Most lawyers didn't want to touch the case. Eventually, Roberta Kaplan and the ACLU signed on. Edie and her team argued that Section 3 of DOMA was unconstitutionally singling out same-sex partners for differential treatment by recognizing only marriages between a man and a woman. As two lower courts ruled in Edie's favor, the case worked its way up to the Supreme Court. Finally, Edie got her big win. On June 26, 2013, the Supreme Court struck down Section 3 of DOMA, and DOMA was ruled unconstitutional. This was the first time that the law affirmed that gay people must receive equal treatment when it comes to a fundamental human right like marriage. President Barack Obama said, "Because people like Edie stood up, my administration stopped defending the so-called Defense of Marriage Act in the courts." 2013 turned out to be a big year for Edie. She became a gay rights matriarch. She was appointed a Grand Marshal of New York City's LGBT Pride March. And she was a runner-up to Pope Francis for Time magazine's Person of the Year. Amid the celebrations, the fight for same-sex marriage waged on. Edie's case only extended to 13 states and Washington, D.C. Exactly 2 years later, on June 26, 2015, the Supreme Court declared same-sex marriage a constitutional right nationwide. Edie threw a party to celebrate this historic victory. On September 26, 2016, Edie got to reap the benefits of these wins. She married Judith Kaysen, whom she'd met at a gay rights event in 2015. Edie Windsor died on September 12, 2017. She was 88 years old. All month we're talking about icons. For more information, check us out on Facebook and Instagram at Womanica Podcast. Special thanks to Liz Kaplan, my favorite sister and co-creator. Talk to you tomorrow. Planned Parenthood fights every day so all people can get the care and education they need to live full, healthy lives. That means having the freedom to control your own body and make decisions for your future, including whether to have an abortion. Abortion storytellers are important. Their powerful narratives, each as unique as they are, reject silence and shame. That's why Planned Parenthood is building a platform to share stories, busting stigma and breaking down barriers to essential health care, one voice at a time. Together, we can help create a future where all people are free to make their own decisions, no matter what. Learn more at plannedparenthood.com/endstigma.
As a teacher, I'm driven to help students excel. I took my career to the next level with a CAEP accredited degree from WGU, the national leader in teacher education. Visit wgu.edu/University of U.
I'm Israel Gutierrez. I'm hosting a new podcast called 4 Years of Heat. It takes you to Miami from 2010 to 2014, when LeBron James, Chris Bosh, and Dwayne Wade set the NBA ablaze.
You know, have an opportunity to team up with the best trio to ever play the game of basketball.
We'll take you inside those 4 monumental years with behind-the-scenes access and insight about one of the greatest teams ever assembled. 4 Years of Heat on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.